It is Fox Across America with Jimmy Failla. The band is always fired up for this next guest, although they're playing Seether by Veruca Salt. I don't even know what that means, but if anybody can translate Veruca Salt to English, it is the Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich. Hey, man.
Hey, Jimmy, what happened to you playing like some Clash or something like really good for me, man?
I know.
Come on.
They gave you.
Seriously.
You always
Come on,
get,
brother.
It's not me. You always do get the best jams. Like, there's actually a conspiracy amongst other guests on the show that you get played on to the best music. But can I don't know what happened there. It's a rotator. So sometimes there's just jams in there. But I just want really quick, before we get into the grown-up stuff, one of the funniest things that ever happened in the history of this show is a great Iowa, Chuck Grassley from the great state of Iowa, who is, as polite as the day is long. He's as sweet as pie. He's in his late hundreds, and I love him, and he came on the show and was fantastic. But somehow the rotator brought him on to, I believe, It Takes Two by Rob Bass and DJ Easy Rock. And I got to be honest, he was a little thrown. It wasn't.
It does take two to make a thing go right, as they say in the business, right?
Yeah, well, I will tell you something, Brnovich. In that instance, I only had one. Two was not willing to cooperate.
Well, I think you probably are familiar with Billy Idol's Dancing with Myself, if you mentioned that. So, I hope my sister's not listening to this. She thinks that we're weird when we talk to each other. But I will tell you, Dad, I want to hear some like Clash, London Calling. Give me like Train in Vain or Death or Glory, something Clampdown,
Rudy Can't Fail. We'll give you some Rudy Can't Fail. We'll give you something.
Yeah.
We treat you right. You do have... Go ahead.
I was going to say the Clash was the only band that mattered, and I'm the only elected official that matters nowadays, right?
All right. Well, listen, man. You are actually now one of many who is suing the Biden administration. You were a little bit of a pioneer. Like, you were suing them before it became trendy, but now everybody wants in. There's this fascinating story right now in the NBA where Kyrie Irving doesn't want to get the vaccination. He has natural immunity to the virus, yet everybody's kind of pistol whipping him in the court of public opinion to go get the virus. But I think what a guy like Kyrie Irving recognizes is what you recognize. When the government takes your freedoms, they don't give them back. And this isn't so much about a vaccine. It's not about where it starts. It's about where it ends. Is it not?
Absolutely. And, Jimmy, we've discussed the 10th Amendment before, and, the Constitution is framed and founded on this notion that, our rights come from our Creator and that we give up certain amount of our rights and power to the government. And that doesn't mean the government gets to tell us how to live our lives. We don't need the nanny state. And the reality is, as you know, if you allow one person, if you allow the President of the United States to have this unfettered power and discretion to tell you or anyone else what you can put in your body, then that is a precedent that will basically shred our Constitution and shred any sort of notion of individual liberty. And shame on the Biden administration for not recognizing that the states created the federal government. The federal government didn't create the states. And this is this fundamental understanding. And this is really the rub between the left and the right, between the progressives versus people that believe in the rule of law, is that progressives believe that our rights come from government and government can be perfected. And that's why, when you look at the logical extreme, it's Marxism or, the movements with Sanger and everybody else. But the reality is that throughout history, when any government that becomes big enough becomes despotic, right? And that's what the framers understood, whether it was looking at ancient Athens and Greece, the Roman Empire and Carthage and everything else in the past. They understood as the government becomes bigger and bigger, it becomes less responsive and it becomes tyrannical. And that's why the framers understood that you have this tension between the executive, legislative, and judicial branch. They used to teach that in school. But the other part of it is that you're supposed to have that tension between the states and the federal government. And as Madison always explained, the states would be zealous guardians of their citizens' liberties.
Yeah, well, I don't know that enough of them are in this day and age, but of course we do appreciate you fighting the good fight, and you're fighting that fight along the border as well. And I wanted to bring this up. We got a report from our own Bill Malugin here at Fox News, who pound for pound has the best hair in cable news. Like, no one likes to talk about it, but between him
he went to Arizona State. Did you know that?
Yeah, I did not know he was at Arizona, but it doesn't surprise me that you're claiming him now that he got the belt. You've never mentioned Malugin on the show. Now that I gave him the hair title.
I'm going to tell you something, and this is the kind of stuff that people will say you should never say. But I'll tell you what, there used to be a bar in Tempe called the Dash Inn. Anyone that went to Arizona State ever went there, I will tell you what, I held the pitcher drinking record there for 30 years until that place got torn down. And so he may have better hair, but I'm telling you what, I was in Arizona State. That's major leagues of partying. You know that, right? That's like when you hold the pitcher drinking record at Arizona State, man, you ain't a rookie, if you know what I'm saying. That's not for lightweights.
when people say you got a 3.0, they're talking about your blood alcohol content.
There you go.
They're not talking.
Hey, you're not going to hear this stuff on Greg Gunfeld.
No, Gunfeld ain't getting this out of you. No, and he knows that. I'm going to send this down to his office. We take a lot of shots at him on the show, and rightfully so.
I've had it up to him, right up to my belly button. No, I shouldn't say that. No, that's it.
It's fine.
He's never going to have me on the show now.
No, it's fine. Okay. He's a sport.
No, we got serious stuff to talk about, and really,
so let
honestly,
me ask you about this. Border Bill Maloogian, Arizona State grad with his gorgeous hair, releases a report that at least 160,000 illegal immigrants have been released into the U.S. with basically no supervision. So we were kind of being lied to, were we not, about this notion that if people were getting in, they knew where they were at all times?
Absolutely, and that's why, and we've talked about this, we have multiple lawsuits against the Biden administration. Everything from the interim guidance, which is now going to become permanent guidance, where they're not deporting people with existing deportation orders, to their failure to build the wall, to the Remain in Mexico policy. So as you know, we have multiple lawsuits going on right now. And this is the bottom line. And this is what's so depressing about this, Jimmy, is that we could have all of the agents we want. We could have all the technology. We can even build the wall and complete the wall. But as long as the Biden administration is systematically letting people into this country illegally, and they are incentivizing people to come here and then essentially releasing them. I mean, my goodness, the toughest questions people are getting asked now if they come to this country illegally is whether they want, twin beds or a king bed in the room we're putting them up in. And then they're releasing them into our communities. And, you're talking about folks that sometimes haven't always been vetted, people with criminal records. I mean, I've seen recent reports that, 1 out of every 5 people coming into the country illegally has a criminal record. And we know that the price of fentanyl is falling because a record amount is coming into our country. So this is stuff, Jimmy, that's going to affect us, not just tomorrow, not just next year, but for a generation. And it's so irresponsible of the Biden administration and his enablers in the U.S. Senate and Congress to do this. It literally, people are going to die in the United States of America because of what the Biden administration is not doing.
Oh, gosh, it's so insane. If you're just joining us, Arizona Attorney General Mark Brnovich is on the line. And I agree with you there that the border is the front door to the house. We're not shutting the front door to the house, which is something we would, of course, do at home. And I don't think when people, when it comes to the fentanyl and the record amount of overdoses we witnessed in the past year in this country, it's so frustrating to see people reduce the border to politics because it's not a Republican or a Democrat issue. It really is an American issue. But I think we live in such a hyper-partisan time that we don't ever confront anything as a team, and it's scary to witness. I mean, have you seen this in your lifetime, or would you not even remember it from all the beer you chugged at Arizona State?
I know. I think without a doubt, you are right about the nastiness and this inability to try to come together and solve common problems. I am a first-generation American, and, my family fled communism, and I think that when you've not only just studied history but lived it, you have a great appreciation for how unique this country is. And just so you know, Jimmy, I was actually born here, so I am eligible to be president, just so you guys know.
Oh!
But I say that, I said that as a joke, but my point is that we are a nation of immigrants. We don't need to be spending $300 million studying why people want to come here. People want to come here because we're the greatest country in the world, and we are the greatest country in the world because we have the rule of law. And I'm telling you, I talked to my mom and her friends from church that almost are all immigrants, are all born in other countries, and they universally, they're so offended by what's going on because, they came here, they had to work hard, they played by the rules, there was a system in place, and even immigrants understand that what's happening now is fundamentally unfair. And what is happening, and this is the part that should scare people, is the Biden administration has essentially ceded operational control of our border to the cartels. So they are enriching the cartels, they are empowering the cartels, and that is going to have a spillover effect not only in drug overdoses and drugs flowing into our country, but that's going to lead to more inner city violence. So when there's more gang violence in Chicago and LA and St. Louis, that is going to be a direct result of because of the Biden administration's failed border policies. So this, as I said, is going to affect us for a generation, and the longer we wait to stop it, the more it's going to affect our kids and even our grandkids.
God, it's so crazy. But these are the type of brilliant points that have earned you the proper play on music on this radio show. Honestly, it's a heavy one. It means a lot to me too. I mean, did you even listen to Veruca Salt back in the day? I didn't. Here and there.
No. That wasn't my jam.
It was like a 90s
wasn't my
thing.
jam. I thought we talked about I tell you, my musical evolution stopped right around Pearl Jam, Kid Rock. That's kind of where like my music evolvement stopped. So I do listen. There's some new country folks I like. There's some really good country music. And yeah, why don't you give me the hookup with Jason Aldean, by the way?
Yo, I was just in Jason Aldean's bar down in Nashville. We did a week of Gutfeld down in Nashville, and I can tell you, even with Kid Rock has probably the best bar on the Strip because it's like the land of misfit toys. Everybody's having a good time. They're drinking themselves senseless. Have you ever seen the movie Toy Story?
Yes.
Okay. Well, in Toy Story,
I'm an American. Yes, I've seen it.
Well, in Toy Story,
I was born here. Remember?
I know. well, in Toy Story 2, the kids all wind up at a place called Sunnyside. The toys do anyway, where their eyes are bit off and their arms have been ripped off and they weren't played with properly. And that is Kid Rock's clientele, and they're the best clientele in Nashville. There are people. They're drinking beer out of a shoe, doing stage dives. They're great.
Oh, man, that sounds like my people. Can I get up and play with the band?
I
tell you, do you know in Nashville in the old days, they had the Ryman Auditorium was right there, and there was an alley, and there was Tootsie's Bar right there. And so the old school people, the teetotalers, they would go out between sets, and they'd go into Tootsie's, and they'd slam drinks, and then they'd go back on and play in the Opry.
I've heard those stories. I will have you know I was in Tootsie's last Friday night, and someone recognized me from TV and started having a serious conversation with me about my son's youth football game that I had mentioned on the radio. And it had dawned on her halfway through the conversation that I really was betting on the games, and I think she was a little disturbed. She thought it was like radio shtick because I joke about betting on my kids' games.
Yes.
And she wasn't laughing when I asked to borrow $50 after they missed the field goal. But,
I'll tell you what, why don't you put a dime and give me the points on this weekend's game, okay?
He's got the Clark Rams on the money line. We love you, Brnovich. Thank you for the vote of confidence. I'll let the kids know. Let's do it again soon, my man.
Thank you very much, Jimmy.
Yes, there he goes.
All right.
Lincoln Failla, if you're listening, the Arizona Attorney General puts a dime, which is gambling parlance. That's a